Clein here! Welcome to my channel! In this video, we are going to compare Diluc versus Gaming again, but with Furina also in the picture. This is the final video for the Diluc versus Gaming series. Clein hoped that this series has been useful. But before going into the core topic of this video, Clein wants to briefly go back to the previous video, Diluc versus Gaming Part 2. Link in the description. Someone noticed that the test was a bit unfair for Diluc because Diluc was using his ultimate even though he has C6 Bennett in the team, which is a DPS loss. On the other hand, Gaming performance was not optimized as well. With Xingqiu in the Vape team and in a single enemy scenario, Gaming better off use his non-Xianyun combo by weaving in normal attacks instead of jumping and doing normal plunge attacks. So let's see how it looks like with a more optimized plays.
Light it up! Seize the make way for the latest power to work! Everybody stand back!
Happy return!
In this comparison, they don't exactly have the same rotation. Xianyun could swirl Pyro in Diluc's team, but not in Gaming's team. But that's still better for Gaming, because after doing multiple runs, Clein notices that this way, Gaming could have more consistent vape plunges, which leads to higher overall DPS. With this new test, we can see that the gap between them are still relatively similar. Although both of them are now doing more damage, there could still be some optimizations to be done for either party. But this is it for now. If there is any updated results, Clein will pin it in the comment section. Now, let's jump into the core of this video. Instead of Xingqiu, we'll bring Furina in. This is the known best team for both Diluc and Gaming at the point of making this video. Clein will divide this comparison into two, one with C6 Bennett and one with C5 Bennett. And to make the comparison more accurate, this time Clein will use math instead. First, let's analyze Diluc's reaction profile and identify his best rotation and combos with C6 Bennett. After analyzing multiple rotation combinations, here is what Clein found out. 1. It is better to use Bennett's ultimate right before swapping to Diluc. This way, you could maximize all the support's buff duration, although you don't get to swirl Pyro in this case. 2. It is highly recommended to cancel Diluc's plunge with dash or normal attack so that you can perform more plunges with shorter field time. It also removes the clunkiness of his plunge attacks. 3. Diluc can vape all of his plunge attacks. Cool! Now let's move to Gaming. It is also better to use Bennett's ultimate right before swapping to Gaming, but there are 3 possible combos. 1. Start with Gaming's skill plunge once, then use his ultimate. Now jump and do normal plunges, followed by skill plunge, performed 3 times. Now wait or do 2 normal attacks before doing 1 more skill plunge. 2. This combo is similar to the previous one, but we skip the last skill plunge. 3. Start with Gaming ultimate, then skill plunge, then run towards Moonchai to reset the cooldown faster. Repeat. This way, you could do 6 to 8 skill plunge attacks, but 6 is the average. Based on multiple tests, Gaming can vape all his skill plunge attacks and normal plunge attacks for all the 3 combos. Now, let's do some calculations and analyze their performance. In this calculation, Clein assumes both are using Rain Slasher R5 weapon and Marechaussee Hunter artifact set. Why Rain Slasher? Because it makes doing fair comparison easier as it is an EM-based weapon with damage percent effect, so it doesn't overlap with Diluc's crit rate ascension stat, nor Gaming's attack ascension stat. Both are using EM Sands, Pyro Damage Goblet, and Crit Circlet. Clein also assumes 20 rolls going into wanted artifact substats like ATK percent, EM, Crit, and ER, all distributed based on the character's substat priority. Gaming ER requires requirement is 150% before C4 and 125% for C4 and above. Okay, now Clein will share you Diluc versus Gaming performance numbers with C6 Bennett. Notice that Diluc actually performs better across the board compared to Gaming with Furina and Xianyun in the picture. Surprising, right? There are a couple of reasons. 1. Diluc plunge playstyle don't need any ER while Gaming needs ER for him to plunge repeatedly. Why don't skip his ultimate and use his normal plunge attack instead? We have C6 Bennett anyway? Gaming normal plunge attack multiplier is low. Hoyoverse knows what they are doing. 2. Diluc rotation is faster, so he can leverage slightly more buffs from the supports. And Gaming skill plunge attack has longer animation to normal plunge attack. But you can't skip doing his skill plunge attack. Not only his normal plunge attack multiplier is low, but it will not generate any particles for him. This would make his ER requirements go even higher. 3. Gaming consumes more Hydro Aura from enemy than Diluc, because Gaming needs to use his ultimate, which also apply Pyro to enemies. Even though Gaming can still vape all his plunge attacks despite this, but you might have more inconsistencies that leads to longer pauses between his plunge attacks. Now, let's see if this changes with C5 Bennett. One thing we all know is C5 Bennett doesn't apply Pyro Infusion, so Diluc has to use his ultimate to do Pyro plunge attacks. Diluc needs to use his ultimate right when he goes on field to get all Pyro Infusion in all his plunge attacks. His burst will also apply Pyro to enemy, which leads to slightly less Hydro Aura in enemy. Based on several runs, Clein found out that Diluc could vape 5 to 6 of his plunge attacks, and he can do 7 to 8 plunge attacks in total. Clein also tried waiting for Hydro Aura to be applied on enemy before doing plunge attacks to vape all of Diluc's plunge attacks. However, we can only do 5 to 6 plunges this way, which is the same with not pausing at all, so scrap this. This will change if you deal with 2 and more enemies that are grouped together though. Because of how Xianyun's swirl from her coordinated attack works, Diluc can vape all of his plunge attacks. However, plunge attacks push enemies back. So at the end, having them grouped up consistently is also a challenge. Now how about Gaming with C5 Bennett? Gaming can conveniently use his third combo in this case, which is just repeating his skill plunges and run towards Manchai for a faster cooldown. Now, let's do some calculations and analyze their performance. Diluc needs to use his ultimate every single rotation, so he needs about 120-130% ER. And Clein assumes Diluc does 7 plunge attacks in total, and he misses his vape on his 4th attacks, which is what Clein observed on average. Okay, here is their performance numbers with C5 Bennett. Interesting, Diluc still performed better on average, but Gaming catches up with his C4 and completely overtakes Diluc with C6. In summary, Diluc wins in most of the scenarios, unless you are using C5 Bennett and your Gaming is below C6. But please remember that this comparison is a theoretical comparison. There are some assumptions went into it, and there are a lot of complexities in how you can play a character in this game. And with the amount of RNG that goes into this game, you might still have a completely different result. At the end, Clein would suggest you to play the character based on how you feel them, how fun the playstyle is, how good their performance is based on your experience. And that's it, guys. Clein hoped this video is useful. Please consider subscribing if you enjoy my content and want to watch more content like this. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.